My Little Pony. My god. How far the franchise has... Okay, you already know the story by now. I think ponies are cool, and then they made Equestria Girls, and I was like, I don't know, let's see. And then I was like, hey, this is pretty good, so that should be the end for all of it, right? Wrong! So it turns out being adequately satisfying means Hasbro and DHX or whoever, we're all like...
Let's make a sequel. Cool.
Upon reading the news that they were going to make a sequel, my mind was all like, yeah, sure, why not? But deep down, I knew that my dream project would never come into fruition. No, that wasn't it, but I do appreciate, no, not appreciate. I'm not gonna put a positive spin on that. What the hell was that? Anyway, let's talk about Rainbow Rocks now. Our story begins at the end of Equestria Girls, where during the big battle with Sunset Shimmer, we open on these three girls, singing while feeding off of the hatred of the people inside. Their names are Sonata, who is kind of ditzy but will ultimately become the fan favorite, Aria, the kind of droll one, and Adagio, the leader, and the most evil of them all. Well, actually, they're all evil, but, they're likably evil, which is nice. As they're complaining about being banished from Equestria for a really long time, there's a sudden light in the sky, which gives the audience the indication that this is happening at the same time as the ending to the first film. Upon seeing this light, they recognize it immediately as Equestrian magic, and Adagio begins to make another plan to take over the world. And other things, I guess. Probably Equestria if she ever got back to it. Meanwhile, Sunset Shimmer, now reformed, is trying to make friends with the other students in an attempt to redeem her from her past, boo-boos. Unfortunately, the other students aren't as forgiving as our main characters, who welcomely accept her into their group with no questions asked. Besides, when the Princess of Friendship tells you to be friends with her, you better damn well do it. So our main characters and the entire school are preparing for this talent show, while Sunset Shimmer is preparing to introduce these new students to the school. However, we soon find out that these new students are our villains. They use their magic to convince the school and its principals to turn this little talent show into not a show, but into a competition. But not just any competition. They're turning it into a battle of the bands. Sunset Shimmer, of course, realizes something is definitely wrong here. So she contacts Twilight Sparkle using the power of texting. No, seriously, she texts her. I mean, it's not like the texting you're aware of where you type into a phone and the phone vibrates. No, she takes an equestrian book, she writes in a book in Equestria vibrates, and inside is the text that Sunset Shimmer makes. So Twilight Sparkle has to find a way to get back. And since Twilight Sparkle has the power to make science her bitch, she finds her way back into the human world. And upon hearing the story, she's like, yep, something's definitely wrong. So in order to combat these villains, also known as the Dazzlings, they have to come up with a counterspell in order to get the people back on their side. And so Sunset Shimmer is like, I'm in! Let's kill this bitch! And the battle is on! So while I had my problems with the previous movie, like I said in my review, I ultimately enjoyed it and had a lot of fun. So when it came time for the sequel, I went in with relatively medium-sized hopes, in that I was going to offer probably the same kind of fun, even if, like the first film, it would be a little bit generic. So imagine my surprise when Rainbow Rocks wasn't just a minor improvement over the original movie, but a major improvement over the original movie. I mean, if you thought How to Train Your Dragon 2 was an improvement over the original movie, look at Rainbow Rocks. This is exactly how a sequel should be done. Now you're probably thinking, well, you're a brony. Of course you're gonna think it's like this really great movie, and you're probably right. I don't blame you for thinking that. But the difference in quality from Equestria Girls to Rainbow Rocks was staggering, and it was by the original team. It was like they looked at the criticism for the first film and decided to improve themselves. And that's exactly what sequels to me should be like, improving upon what didn't work about the original film. The writing was better, the characters were better, even though the film is pretty much 1 minute longer than the first movie, the pacing was so much better. It felt longer than 73 minutes, and to me, that was a good thing. One of my problems with Equestria Girls was that the music, although I did appreciate its pop rock angle and it was pretty catchy, it did feel kind of forced, like we had to have a musical number here, so let's just have one. And its best number was cut off around the climax. In Rainbow Rocks, the musical numbers feel more natural, like they're supposed to be there. And the best part is, the songs are consistently good. You could easily debate on what the best song in Rainbow Rocks is. That's how good the songs in the film are. Even days after watching it, I still have no idea what my favorite song in the film is. Do I like Under Our Spell more, or do I like Welcome to the Show more? I don't know, and frankly, I don't really care. They're both great songs. But now, let's talk about Rainbow Rocks' secret weapon. A character who really, I didn't even think would have the power to run away with this movie. She has a character arc which, frankly, is pretty fantastic and well written for the short amount of time this movie has. Have you guessed who it is yet? Of course you did. It's Sunset Shimmer. While in the previous installment, Sunset Shimmer was more of an archetypal antagonist, I definitely saw some potential in her character, especially at the end, hoping that the sequel would develop her into a more three-dimensional character, though the back of my brain did think that she would be nothing more than a cameo. But to discover that the main thrust of Rainbow Rocks was about the redemption of Sunset Shimmer surprised me to no end, as her character arc was the most intriguing thing about the entire movie. Her scenes and interactions with the other characters made her a rootable protagonist, and there are one or two moments that made me genuinely worried that she would go back to her old ways, which is a testament to how engaging I thought the material was. So when it got to the big climax, I was rooting for her more than anyone else in the sequence. So with a better pace, stronger writing, and a great character arc, I'm sure some of you are now thinking, well, what's wrong with it? Well, to be honest, there really isn't that much I can complain about, except for maybe one or two things that ultimately bring this down from being like a perfect movie. One of which being the character of Flash Sentry. Now, I know I defended him a little bit in my previous review, but his character here was kind of dull and didn't really add anything to the picture, except for some added conflict for the Battle of the Bands. And I do sometimes question the logic of having a pony-turned-human Twilight pining over a human when there's a perfectly good pony alternative in Equestria. I don't know, maybe they'll deal with it in Season 5 or Equestria Girls 3 or something. And this one's kind of a minor one, but I wish that the musical numbers were a little bit longer. Now, credit where credit is due, Daniel Ingram does a fantastic job here, offering some quality work that is right up there with the best the series has to offer. I do wish that there was more songs with the Battle of the Bands. Heck, I was kind of hoping for a song with Flash Sentry. Maybe that would make him a more valuable character. But honestly, this one's a little bit more minor because the Under Our Spell sequence is probably one of the best scenes in the entire movie because it's a montage sequence of the Battle of the Bands that is visually awesome in its execution. And then this leads me to my main complaint with the movie, which is kind of the same one I've had with the first film. While I can't praise the pacing with Sunset Shimmer enough, I do kind of wish that the film was longer at the same time. With Sunset Shimmer being more of a main character than the others kind of get pushed to the background in the process, making them sort of lost in the shuffle and not needed until they're needed for the musical numbers. Even Twilight Sparkle, who's sort of essential to figuring out the origins of the Dazzlings, she just becomes a supporting character after that, with some minor scenes with Sunset Shimmer to show that their friendship is building. Which kind of makes me wonder if bringing Twilight Sparkle back was really necessary, other than to have a couple minutes in the pony world. With a rewrite or two, you could easily make Sunset Shimmer figure out who the Dazzlings are on her own, and then become a member of the band. Still, with all that being said, my original point still stands, that I would have been perfectly okay with this film being 90 minutes or more, if it meant watching our main characters having more interactions with each other, with scenes like Pinkie Pie's slumber party being a highlight of the film, as it maintained a perfect balance of humor and character development. So here are my final thoughts about Rainbow Rocks. While it's not a perfect movie, it's a damn good one and a much better film than the original. While that doesn't mean you should skip Equestria Girls, as it's essential viewing to viewing the sequel. The animation is better, the writing is better, the songs are better, Sunset Shimmer is better, and despite my problems with the pacing, it's still very good for what it is. If you didn't like the first one, there's a chance that you might like Rainbow Rocks, but if you did like the first one, there is a definite chance that you will love the sequel. Not only is it a worthy installment in the series, but it also opens the door for further adventures for this cast, and I personally cannot wait to see what they have in store next. I give Equestria Girls Rainbow Rocks an 8.5 out of 10. See you next time.